Introducing Recorded Content, a podcast for small, scrappy B2B marketing teams who want to get the most out of podcasting. In each episode, we capture stories from industry experts and podcasters. Listen in and uncover what it takes to launch, run, and grow a successful B2B podcast. Check out and subscribe to the show on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. Let's jump in.
Hey, this is Tristan. I'm the co-founder of Motion and your host for this episode of Recorded Content. Recorded Content is brought to you by Motion, a done-for-you podcast agency for small, scrappy B2B tech marketers. According to Chartable, there were about 600 branded podcasts released last year. There are more being released this year. But podcasts are more than just an audio file that lives in an RSS feed. Podcasts are more than just a show for prospects. Brands are using podcasts throughout the entire customer journey. In fact, brands are using podcasts as a way to retain customers as well. So in this episode, I have a chance to talk with Mark Asquith. Mark is the CEO and co-founder of Captivate. Captivate is a platform that gives you the freedom and flexibility to make podcasting all yours, whether you're a creator or a brand. So let's jump in, see how your brand can use podcasts throughout the entire customer journey. All right. So Mark, I was actually doing some research ahead of this conversation. I was listening to an interview that you had on another podcast, and I heard you say that it's not the golden age of podcasting. It's just that this year is perhaps better than last year. So what did you mean by that?
It's been the golden year of podcasting since I got into podcasting. Someone said that, and usually to try and sell something, which is not a bad thing. That's how sales work,
Yeah.
And I suppose a less cynical mind might say, well, of course it's the golden year because last year was the most golden year up till that point, and this year's just got better. That's like the nice optimist's view.
Right.
And all joking aside, and I'm being a little bit flippant there. Like I am an optimist when it comes to podcasting. I've got to be because I help to shape it and I create it and I love it. I'd still be building podcasts even if I didn't work on it. I'd still have all this gear and I'd still be talking about things that I love. The reason that I always kind of just add a little sensibility to that notion is that it's easy for the hyperbole to kick in and for people to think, well, this is great. I can just build something quickly because it is the golden age. And, the golden age is very often in people's minds equitable to a gold rush, which is a very different thing. So I'm always saying that with the best intentions, which are to set some quality expectations, but also to help people to understand, what it really means to be a podcaster and to create a brand in podcasting. So, of course, it's the best time that podcasting has ever had. But don't confuse that with a gold rush. That's my real kind of takeaway from that.
Yeah, I like that. I didn't get the gold rush angle before when we were talking that other podcast, but it makes sense. It's like there are always new opportunities popping up, but at the end of the day, you still got to rest on those fundamentals and build something, right? No matter what time and place it is. So,
well, that's the thing, man. The building's the key thing. I think that's just sorry to interject, but I think the building is the key thing. It's not just create, continue. It's start where you are, iterate incrementally. Add, build. You build a house, you don't drop a house, and you build a business, you don't just light switch a business, and everything's the same in podcasting. So great point, dude.
Yeah, and there are a lot of marketing gurus out there, right? You have if you go on LinkedIn at any point in time, you have these folks saying that they're throwing around all kinds of marketing advice. Get on Clubhouse, like you mentioned. There's a gold rush on Clubhouse, which I don't even know if anyone's on there right now, but or start doing LinkedIn lives and create a community. That's another one that's pretty big right now. But as a podcast veteran yourself for many years, what's the main factor you see? Like when we look at branded podcasts, where traditionally the folks that we're working with, why do you think that a lot of these stall or fail at some point in time? What have you seen as you've been in the industry for a while?
Well, it's back to that golden age. Someone sold them the fact that it's a golden age, and so their expectations are wildly off. If you go to a conference with one of the gurus, you expect to be motivated, and you come away with some motivation. But unless you're careful, 3 months later, that motivation's not there anymore. So there's a reason they run the conferences every year, and it's a similar sort of thing. Is that these brands and anyone in podcasting are being sold the fact that now is the time to get into podcasting. Of course, it's nothing wrong with that. That's there's still never been arguably a better time to start a blog or to create a YouTube channel. But there are more of those than there's ever been, and podcasting is the same. Perpetually, podcasting will increase. Now, the reason I think that a lot of branded content and a lot of businesses, a lot of B2B, a lot of brands really struggle with podcasting is it's almost like a small business with SEO. All right, so a small business with SEO, what they want to do is they want to get a quick win. They think that I need more sales, I need more traffic, I need more exposure, and I need more awareness and attention. And everyone says that I should be doing SEO. So I do SEO and it doesn't work because understandably SEO, the O in SEO, the O is optimization, which ergo points to the fact that it's an ongoing thing because you can't optimize something that's a one-time thing. It's a continual, incremental and measurable path to more results. And so that small business stops doing the SEO because they invest, whatever their budget is, and they put an unrealistic deadline on it. And in turn it fails, and podcasting to me is a similar thing in the branded space a lot of the time because someone, again, cynical Mark coming out, someone in the marketing team wants a pat on the back that day or wants that pay rise. Maybe they're coming up for a review in 3 months' time. Yeah. I want to be the person that thinks about podcasting for our brand. Brilliant. Sounds good. What can it do? Well, it's the golden age. Everyone's doing it. Saks are doing it. VaynerMedia are doing it. Pretty Little Thing are doing it. Starbucks are doing it. Why aren't we doing it? Crap. Let's do it. Run us some benchmarks. All right, fine. I'll do all that stuff. So that marketing person gets the podcast started. All well and good. Brownie points done. Chick in a box. Nice and easy. But then the ROI doesn't come. And it's usually because they're probably not measuring it properly anyway. They don't have an ecosystem of metrics that they're trying to push forward. Instead, what they're doing is they're measuring X downloads versus what else came in, Dave. So what then happens is that they tail off because it requires budget. Because if you're a branded podcast, it can't be rubbish. It has to be good, which comes with a cost, whether it's a time cost, opportunity cost, or whether it's a physical investment. And then the cycle perpetuates itself. I've seen it so many times with email marketing, with SEO, with paid advertising. The person coming in wins the conversation of the day by saying, right, we're going to move with this new tactic to a point where it doesn't deliver quickly enough because the expectations were wrong. And I think it comes down to a lot of like the people that do it well in branded podcasting. If you look at someone like Pretty Little Thing, I can't remember who does their podcast. Maybe Social Chain do it. I forget. It's just content. It's content. It's great. It's just entertaining content. And what it does is it positions Pretty Little Thing in brand alignment. It puts me there with them. I'm the target market potentially, and they'll be my first, second, or third choice for a quick search for a wedding outfit or whatever. So the point is that it's about that alignment. I think a lot of branded podcasts get that wrong, and I think arguably there are a lot of podcasting gurus, but I can't find one that's really that good because launching a podcast is easy, and that's the stuff people teach. And, no one, literally, quite literally, you can ask anyone, how do you get your podcast to 10K? And they'll throw some buzzwords and they'll throw some noise and they'll do big macro things. Be everywhere, be part of a community, share, repurpose, stop me when this starts to sound familiar. It's all the same. No one ever goes, right, do this today and then do this today. And if that doesn't work, let's try these 3 other things. And here how we're going to measure any other things that we're going to do. Like that annoys me. That's the thing that I'm trying to do something about. And sadly, I think that permeates through into branded podcasting because who do you get in? You get a launch guru who just rinses and cycles. And there's nothing wrong with that. Be a podcast launch guru, but let's be clear that you're a podcast launch guru. You're not a podcast growth guru. We can unpack that as much as we need to, but I think that's a huge set of reasons why branded can go wrong.
Oh, excuse me. I have to cut that out. Goodness. But yeah, Mark, the launch guru is a term I haven't seen. I love it. It's like, we'll get you started. And then after that, good luck, But you you talked a lot about the branded podcast, and that's where I want to go to next. That's who we work with mostly and who mostly listens to the show.
Mhm.
So let's start with if you have a small, scrappy marketing team, right? And if you're heading up that team at a tech company, how can you view a podcast as part of your overall marketing mix? Let's say you have won that conversation of the day, you have the green light, you're ready to get rolling, but how should it be positioned maybe in context with everything else that you're doing?
Yeah, it's an interesting problem, to be honest, Tristan. I think it's all about, multi-channel. Of course it is. It's like any marketing strategy. Everything is omni-channel these days, and rightly so, and it has been for such a long time. And it's just the channels that develop. And I think podcasting is a developed channel. It's a channel that has now come to a little bit of maturity. It's still pretty nascent compared to the other ones, but its maturity has certainly moved forward over the last 5-6 years. So I think one of the things to understand first and foremost is, like, how does this even fit into your marketing funnel? A lot of the time, much of the marketing spend for a brand will go into the awareness category and the awareness stage, the top of the funnel stuff, the big
Mhm.
noise making stuff, which, as we all know, does a number of things. It will position the brand. It will tell the story of the brand. It will sell the aspirations of the brand. You're not selling a holiday, you're selling a week of relaxation, and you're selling coming back refreshed, or you're selling the beer on the beach, whatever. Classic aspirational marketing. So when you think about how podcasting can fit into that, it's all about storytelling and positioning. We've got a very strong chance to elicit emotions with audio. You and I could chat now, and we could get angry, we could cry, we could laugh, we could make other people laugh, and we would elicit emotions that very
Mhm.
often you don't get the depth of on a YouTube video or from a blog or from any other type of content marketing. So for me, podcasting, the quickest win that a brand can have, and how I would fit it into a strategy, is that real top of the funnel story brand stuff. That real clear look. You're searching for something, go ahead, and all you need to do is, we'll be there in the content marketing results. We will be there in organic search. Sure, you might get a bit of retargeting, but look, if you want to connect on your terms with our brand to a point where you feel like you understand enough, then here's a podcast. That's how it really fits in. I think one of the sad things with that, one of the unfortunate things with that, is that a lot of marketing departments, in my view, when it comes to podcasts, don't want to put that level of effort in to add the connection. They've got their
Mhm.
brand guidelines, they've got their marketing strategy for the year. All they think they need to do is get numbers. So what
Right.
they do is they forget that the content is the thing that will convert those numbers to something else: engagement, interaction, whatever the goal is, right through the funnel to a sale. Um, so I think that's how I see it being very easily built into a brand at the most basic level. I mean, we can talk about retention, we can talk about conversions, we can talk about, how podcasting fits into the different layers of the funnel. But I think fundamentally, an emotional connection is the thing that podcasting can do best. And the only way to do that is to tell stories that are really, really interesting and are really aligned with the brand that you're trying to put out into the world. For us, let's use Captivate as an example. We've got a few podcasts launching, and
Mhm.
we've got our own podcasts, out there. I never pitch Captivate. I never
Yeah.
pitch Captivate. I just tell a story. I told one a few months ago, which had a real good reaction. Like, here's why the guy that delivered my logs, or almost delivered my logs, will never get work from me again, because he made these 4 cardinal mistakes in his marketing, or in the conversation in particular that I had with him. Here's how that relates to podcasting. And people were able to action that because it was story based, it was emotive. People were like, oh my God, like, there's a big aha moment on that one. Brands, I think, sometimes still feel like, because they are a brand and because they've got budget, they can just throw a budget at it, and they
Yeah.
can just be a brand. This is not Mad Men. It's not the 60s. It's not about advertising. It's about communicating. So, yeah, again, a lot to unpack on that, but I think that is where a brand can certainly start.
Yeah, and I think that is the advantage of a podcast and where you have, this awareness channel. Some of the content that comes out of there can be awareness, but it really is, all right, let's dive deep into that one-to-one story like you just talked about, right? Where you're going really deep into something. And that's the advantage there, where you can't do that with a lot of other content. So that said, let's say if a brand, a lot of the folks that we work with, they're a tech company, they have a longer sales cycle, right? So it's less transactional in nature. And what do you feel is the best way to construct a podcast? Do you do different shows for different parts of the journey, like you were talking about? Or is there a mix of different types of episodes in the same feed? What's the best way to think about that if I am a marketer with a longer sales cycle?
Yeah, that's a great question, Tristan. And I think for an overriding rule of thumb, but not one that ties you into anything problematic as you move forward and develop, is to do what you can do and target the people with the thing that you can do that will give you the most impact. Now, what I mean by that is this: if you let's say you're an enterprise B2B tech company,
Mhm.
you're selling a CRM in, and your decision maker is, you've got to get the CFO on side, and you've got to get the CMO on side. You've got to get the sales director on side. Very simple example.
Yeah.
Well, who's the real person that you've got to get on side? It's probably the CFO, because they're going to sign this investment off. Whatever, you're a 10, 50, 100K a month product. So you've got to get the CFO on side, because the other people are theoretically easier because it's not their name on the check.
Mhm.
So in an ideal world, of course, you would create some, and we'll talk about the feed structure in a second, but you would create some content to target the CMO. You would target some content around the sales director. And you would create things like a branded podcast around how to make more sales, or, because if you're selling CRM software, it's all about making more sales for your clients. You would create content to hit that sales director. How to be. Here's a podcast on how to be the ultimate sales team, how to increase the efficacy of your sales team, and it would be that kind of content. Same with the CMO. Ultimate CMO marketing podcast. This is for you, the CMO, and blah blah blah. And the same with the CFO. But if the CFO is the person you've got to really convince, it becomes about more than just educational content around that. Okay, so what I'm talking about here, and again, we will get to the feed structure, I promise. The point is that CFO is a CFO 9 to 5.
Yeah.
What else are they doing? What else are they doing? Let's figure it out. Let's figure out, what's their income. Let's do some basic work on basic marketing work.
Mhm.
What kind of person are they? How are they running their life? What do they listen to? Well, they're a C-suite exec. They've probably got a bit of spare cash. They are going to like a range of things, whether it's travel, whether it's sports, whether it's what. They will like something, and there will be trends within the data, and you will know that because you've done your research. So there are a few options that gives you then, and this is where the feed structure comes in. You create branded podcasts that are around clearly the thing that presents you as the option that they want. The ultimate CFO. And this is a very flippant and crass example, but the ultimate CFO podcast. If we were to get really thoughtful on it, and we were to really spend some time digging under the skin of it, it would be more about, I guess, something along the lines of, how to work with the C-suite as a new CFO, how to regenerate your CFO career when you're looking for a transition. There are all these bits of content that we can do aimed at that 9 to 5 that positions you as someone that gets that. But also what we can do is we can probably invest a little bit of money in the ultimate C-suite fitness podcast. We know what hours you work. We know how busy you are. Your commute's probably half an hour or 45 minutes. It's pretty tiring. You're probably of this sort of age because you're a C-suite for a decent sized company that's going to sign a 20 grand a month check for us.
Yeah, you're not 22, right?
Yeah, you're not 22. If you're 22, you're up at 5 a.m. running a marathon and lifting weights. I remember those days.
Yeah.
I did that from age 22 to 22 and a half, Tristan. It was a terrible 6 months.
That's right. I believe you. I was there with you.
So the point is that as branded content goes, we have to think laterally as well. Okay, so that's the point that I'm getting at with that one. Now, to the feed question. It depends. Depends on your target. Me, personally, I would always advocate for one feed does one thing really well.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise you get confused. There are hosting platforms like Captivate, plug, that will allow you to have multiple podcasts under one account. So why bother muddying the water? if someone's going to listen to an average of 7 podcasts per week, wouldn't it be cool if 5 of those were yours? Why confuse them with one feed?
Yeah.
And say, well, this is an interview with Tristan, and then we've got Mark diving deep into an education session, and then we've got the fitness guy on. Like, it's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think that the takeaways from that are, don't create content that just hits your potential prospect in the face. Okay, so that's point number 1. Think laterally. What else are they into? How can you pay for content to be created on a lateral basis? Number 2, one purpose, one feed. One purpose, one feed. Don't confuse things. Why would you?
Yeah.
But number 3, think then back to that funnel. And I don't want to sort of teach you how to suck eggs on this one because you're better at it than me. But, people buy from people, the old classic cliche, the old adage, like, trust, get to know me, get to like me, get to trust me. I ain't listening to your CRM podcast. It's pretty dull. It's pretty dull, and you can try and jazz it up, but I'll probably listen to it during work time because it's on their book, and maybe on my commute if I've got a pressing meeting coming up.
Yep.
But that's at the bottom of the funnel. That's when someone has already decided a CRM is required, and someone has also said it might be this one.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we'll talk about sponsorships of shows in a second, but the idea is, get me to know the founders. Now, guest strategies, sponsorships, that all comes into the mix here. Get the person who is likely to be the person selling to the CFO to be on podcasts. And let's just, so Tristan, you're the salesperson. You're trying to sell me this CRM. I'm the CFO, all right? I'm 39 years old. I'm going gray. I'm a little bit lazy with my fitness. We'll use fitness as the example, all right?
Yeah.
Tristan's clearly fit as a fiddle. You can see it from a mile off. So what do we do? And I know this is a very specific example, and I'm not advocating that everyone just does bloody C-suite fitness podcasts.
And I'm not like,
but the idea
fit
is
as a fiddle. So we know that.
Yes,
too.
you are. I can see. We're recording this on Squadcast, so
it's clear.
I can see that. So the point is that I sponsor a podcast. Okay, and I create a podcast that happens to be sponsored by CRM.io, whatever, my company, your company, whichever I said. And the idea is that we create this branded content around fitness, but you are the inquisitive host of it, or you are the constant guest. It's not a CRM.io sponsors this podcast. No. It's not. It's how Tristan did this thing. How Tristan went from A to B with his fitness. And wait a sec, wasn't that the same guy that told me about the work-life balance stuff a while ago? Because he was going through that as a personal dev piece as well.
Right.
Why is this guy always around? And it just happened, it's your content that you've created, but you are the subject of it. Now, what's really fun with that is, if you structure this properly, who will be the set of people that CFO sees on the letterheads and sees on the emails and sees on the phone calls and the Zoom calls? It'll be that person that they just got to know across 8 episodes of 2 podcasts over the last 2 months. The person that sounds mega familiar. The person whose ice has already been broken because I know the inflections and the enunciations that Tristan has in his voice because I've listened to him. What is that? That's instant familiarity. It's instant friendship, and it really helped. Now, that is one very specific example.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to encourage here is brands to think in a joined up way when it comes to your podcast. So what I'm talking about here is not branded content will pay for a podcast to be produced on fitness. Let's go get Mr. Motivator, the fitness guy, and get them to talk to loads of fit people. There's no alignment. But what I'm also not doing is saying, let's get one of the internal guys, the social media guys that know about computers. Let's get them to do a podcast with Tristan. It's a fitness one. This guy doesn't need to know about fitness because Tristan knows about fitness. Like the other person, they just know about computers. So we're not thinking disjointed. And what we are doing is we're saying, well, wait a sec. It's more likely that one of our 5 salespeople will end up conversing with people from this person's company. Let's get them up front, but do it in such a way that it's high quality. So matching your subject matter experts with that Venn diagram crossover of what else is going on with these clients.
Yeah.
Long-winded answer, I know, mate. A lot of example there. But I think that the big takeaway, if it was a one-liner, would be think in a joined-up way, and consider your funnel in that as well. You can even use your audio to push people down your funnel, as we know. We talk about that all day long, but think in a joined up way.
Yeah, I like that. And in order to get there, which I found is, and you mentioned this at the top of the interview, is just building something, adding layers, refining, right? And so I wanted to ask you about that because that's an important part of podcasting. Sometimes you don't hit it out of the park, right? Initially with that first idea or that first episode. So whether it's changing the format or just changing the tone a little bit, when do you know if it is a good time to make an adjustment? How do you do that?
When you ask, I think that's the thing that people get wrong is imagine being John Bon Jovi, right? And everyone wants to hear Living on a Prayer. And you are tired. I don't know if anyone's seen that video of him at that wedding. The poor guy did not want to get up and sing at that wedding, but the singer, like the club band singer, like the wedding singer was like, oh, Bon Jovi's in the audience. We do Living on a Prayer at weddings. Seems like he'll probably want to get up and do the thing that he's delivered 500,000 times over a 40-year career.
Yeah.
But to someone, it's the first time they've heard that song. I might introduce my little nephew to it. He's getting into playing guitar and he loves music and he loves feel-good melodic key changes that lift up a third and make him feel great, classics. So he's going to love it. I guarantee it. But John Bon Jovi probably thinks, oh my God, I'm tired of this stuff. And it happens the same way with podcasting, right? The amount of times that I see podcasts changing because the host is bored is crazy. Like at the point that you're getting bored, you're probably just getting good at it.
Yeah.
Muscle memory. And, Tiger Woods has got a broken leg and he can beat me at golf today, right? Because he's hit that many golf balls. And that's the point, is that as soon as you get the muscle memory, you're probably becoming more natural. You're probably becoming better at it. So the point of boredom is actually a really interesting thing to treat as this sort of nexus point. Do you double down on what you are bored with, but that you may probably be getting a response from for the very first time ever? Mm-hmm. So boredom shouldn't be a trigger. Boredom shouldn't be a trigger. I would also posit that declining downloads shouldn't be a trigger. Now that's contentious. People saying, well, wait, if my downloads are going down, what's going on there? Fine, I get that, but map the other side. What's happening to the engagements? So build in mechanisms. I ask at the beginning of every episode, and we, again, plug. I use my Captivate short link to Twitter. I've built a short link that's measured in Captivate. I link it to my podcast episodes. And I say, look, if you want a bit of banter, if you want to chat podcasting, maybe you want to talk about how to grow your audience or when's the perfect time to change up your podcast, I'm on mark.live/Twitter. I measure that. All right. So if my downloads are going down, but my interactions are going up, what am I doing? I'm shaving off the bad audience. I'm becoming better. So that's another indicator of things probably actually going well, but that can be perceived as going the wrong way. So when is a good time to change it? Well, a good time to change it is when that engagement's not coming. Downloads are dropping, engagement's not coming. I would also posit that a good time to change it is when downloads are going up, because we're talking branded podcasts here. We're not talking about selling sponsorships. If you want to sell a CPM model, fine, all well and good. Put your numbers up. Engagement sort of doesn't matter if you're selling CPM. But for us, in the branded space, it does. So if our numbers are going up, but our engagement's just either plateauing or going down, something's not right. Something is not right. That's the first indicator. That's a trigger. Mm-hmm. Another trigger is when you're putting a lot of time into producing the content, but actually things are just sort of diminishing in returns. That old classic in podcasting where it's like, well, numbers aren't going up, engagement's not going up. Do you know what we should do? We should do more podcasts because, that's what people tell us to do. Do double episodes, you'll get double downloads. I don't know who thought of that. It's crazy. So the thing to consider with this is doing more is usually a perpetual cycle of diminishing returns. It normally leads to less. So instead, think about doing less. We talked earlier on about that multi-podcast strategy, and I very, very specifically said focus on the thing that will likely target the audience that you want it to gain the highest returns early. Now, if you can do that, you can continue to do that and become the best at that and refine and refine and refine and make that the best thing, then you become very focused on one particular thing and you grow that particular thing. So if you're doing multiple podcasts or you're doing multiple episodes and it's not growing, like just stop. Just don't publish one for 1 week and see what happens. But put that spare energy into promoting the original show. Now, I'll tell you a bit of a secret on this one, Tristan. I stopped promoting my podcast on 70% of social networks that I'm on.
Okay.
I stopped Instagram. I stopped Facebook, pending their release on the 22nd of June. We'll see if that changes. Probably won't. We'll see. I don't know. Might do. And instead, I just publish it on Twitter. But I don't really do like the whole go and listen now thing. I'll do more content around. I mean, you engage with it a lot. We talk a lot on Twitter.
Yeah.
A lot of my stuff is threads. A lot of my stuff is sort of thoughts around the industry. And I post it a little bit on LinkedIn because people want to know about podcasting on LinkedIn. Do you know what happened when I stopped posting Facebook and Instagram? Like the fear that is inherent with that. What happened when I stopped was the sum total of nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing happened. My downloads didn't stop, but what did happen was I could put more time into Twitter.
Yeah.
And then things started going up again. But just on Twitter, just by focusing on that, my podcast downloads went up, whatever. So you can sort of scale that decision making to this. What's a catalyst for changing my podcast? Rule of thumb in my mind on that one, and a bit of a single line takeaway is it's probably not time to change your podcast when you think it is. Ask people to give you feedback. Analyze that feedback, not quantitative stuff, not feel good stuff, qualitative, deep dive, paragraphs of text from people. Analyze it. And if things come out, then change it. But if you're getting bored, that's probably a good sign that you should keep going because you've done it enough to be pretty good at it. You only get bored of something if you're either good at it or will never be good at it. And it's rare that you can be bad at podcasting because to get to the point of being willing to press record, you're already confident enough that you're good enough to do it.
Yeah, I love it. And the feedback loop is important. I actually had a post on LinkedIn about that today as far as maintaining momentum for your branded show. Getting internal feedback from your own folks is important. What are some of the ways that a brand can get feedback? Like if they want to be a little bit more proactive about it than just, folks reaching out to them directly, what are some of the best ways that come to mind?
Well, I think surveys are always an easy thing. If you've got a brand email list, that's sort of a no-brainer. Write some very simple, open-ended questions. What do you like about our podcast? What don't you like? Thank you. That's it. You don't need anything else. That nothing will beat that. Nothing. No other feedback will beat a paragraph from your listener about what they like and dislike. Without a doubt, nothing else will beat that. I would also say that you can run some more specific hard polls. So we've got a bit of interaction tech called Productivity. You don't have to use something like that. You can use just a poll anywhere on Twitter or just use a polling piece of software. I often run polls using this interaction tech Productivity, and I just say, look, here's a bonus episode of the podcast. In about 30 seconds, I'm going to ask you which of these 4 things you would like me to do more of. And then about a minute after that, I'm going to ask you which of these 4 things you'd like me to do less of. Guess what? They come from what I'm bored of. You know what I mean? So if I'm bored of like 4 things in my podcast, I'm like, which one of these are the audience going to give me permission to get rid of, like result? Right. And I'll use that interaction tech. I'll let them listen on my website and the poll will come up in the podcast player. They vote and I see that, I see the data in the back end. That's really useful for brands. This is not a plug. It's just, it's a plug. I'm not going to lie. We're just opening that out to a beta. So that will be available just as a free beta.
I was going to say, Mark, I haven't seen that. It's called Productivity.
Yeah, it's badass, man. If you do a search on my Twitter feed for it,
okay,
we run some tweaks and some tests on it. We did a number. We did one with Jordan, I think. We did one with Chris Ducker. We did one with Mike and Callie at Membership Guys. And we ran some tests with them. And we've got a lot of interaction running through that. It's linked up to a lot of other things. But the quick test that we did was just a feedback poll. Nice. I can't remember what the URL. I'll send it to you on Twitter or something, mate.
Yeah, because I'm going to dive into that a little bit. Because, that was something I wanted to get from you here is just like, that feedback piece is important. So it sounds like this is a tool that. So is it interact? How does it work? What are the mechanics of it?
Okay, so our goal with this is we want to make one-click interaction reality across the board for podcasting.
Okay.
So the end game is one-click interaction in any ecosystem. So a lot of the solutions that are coming up now, they're just closed ecosystems. Look at me, I've got a new podcast app that allows you to do this. It's brilliant, but it's not going to work, because the people that listen to podcasts listen in the apps that they want to listen in. That's clear.
Mm-hmm.
So productivity is a piece of middleware. It's an API-based middleware that sits between a podcast RSS feed. So this is not a Captivate product. It's another company that Kieran and I own. And it's not a hosting platform. It's a piece of middleware, and it connects to an RSS feed, and it connects via an SDK, either a native SDK on the Android and the iOS side, or via a more sort of API based set of interactions and integrations with any podcast app on the planet. We're working on some integrations with apps, running the gamut of the size of them. And what it does is it allows for interaction to happen, but in such a way that it's not like, oh, click here and we'll open a link up and then you got to enter this coupon code. It's like, all right, you want that thing? Sweet, press. Delivered. So, and it does a range of things. We're linked. We work with Eventbrite and MemberPress. We work with Airweb and MailChimp, ConvertKit. We work with our own proprietary voting platform and the quizzing platform. We can do deep dive subscriptions into episodes of your podcast. We can do deep dive user agent sniffing to make sure that when you put a subscribe interaction in, it opens up their podcast app on their phone and goes straight to your show with one click. So this is. It's changing the game, and it's standardizing interaction in the audio industry. Now, the big kicker with this, Tristan, the thing that we believe in more than anything, is that we're also solving the privacy problem. So users can opt out of any type of tracking and opt in. And let me give you an example of this. We're digressing a bit here, but podcasting, in my view, is built on advertising, and that's changing to a degree. Listener support, monetization for creators. That's everything we believe in at Captivate, and that's why Captivate's roadmap is completely geared at promotion and monetization for podcasters. All right, so that's that. But advertising is a multi-billion-dollar industry when it comes to podcasting. Okay, so if everyone says, well, we don't want advertisers because it's bad for privacy, where's all that money going to go? It's going to stop, because what do CMOs want? And brand managers, they want metrics. Of course they do. Of course
they do. Data, yeah.
So how do we bridge the gap? Well, very easily. We develop something that is not just copying display ads and TV ads and radio ads. We develop something for podcasting, which is what productivity is. And what it allows us to do is say, well, look, you can have the things that you want, which is to prove that something somewhere happened, so you can see the thing that you need to prove in a report. But actually, two things. You're not getting my IP and my data unless I specifically choose to give it. So opt-in happens at 3 places. Number 1, episode level. You can get my data just for this episode because, Tristan, I believe in what you were saying today. And that brand that's sponsoring this, they sound pretty sweet. There you go. You can have it. Level 2 of opt-in, guess what? You can have this at show level. Tristan, I believe in you more than anything. Your work is fantastic. Mm-hmm. So what I'm going to do is that anything that you say, we spent 200 episodes getting to know each other. Boom. If you tell me that it will help you to get more sponsors, if you can prove that I've listened to it, I opt in. Number 3, at app level. Oh, sweet. You listen on PodLP on KaiOS. Brilliant stuff. Well, guess what? I've been using this app since day one. I was there at 2008 when it was created. You know what? I know that these guys really believe in this stuff. So you can have my data at app level. Okay. Now, that's getting the advertisers what they want. Second piece of the puzzle. The bigger picture. What do advertisers really want? But they don't just want empty data or impressions. They want warmer data. They want data that's warm, that is actually usable. Well, if I opt into something, I'm automatically warmer. So my argument in the podcasting industry, it doesn't make me many friends, but the friends that it does make me are the ones that count, is that we can do something better for brands. We can do something better for advertisers that gets advertisers what they want, but on our terms as an industry in podcasting, not just bending to their will because they get what they want in TV and retargeting and display. We have a chance now. This is the nexus point. This is the time that we can shape this, and that's what productivity is. Sorry for the pitch.
No, I love it. I didn't even have that on like my list of things to take through, but I appreciate that, Mark. I mean, it sounds like, and it's relatively new, right? I mean, you're rolling out
Yeah.
some of this, so
In alpha at the minute.
No, this is great. And I think that opt-in piece is what we will see, right? If you're able to build trust, people will opt in. They will, grant some of that permission. And that's probably going to be the trend that we'll see as we see all these changes with cookies and all the privacy data that we're looking at now. So this will be it. I'm going to follow this along even further. I'm going to, when we get off of this, I'm going to dive into that a little deeper. That might even be another episode that we do.
Especially happy to chat all the time, of course.
Yeah, especially on the branded side, because I mean there are two sides of it, right? It's more data from the show that you're producing, and then it's also, hey, how can I, use this data to actually advertise my show in my company across other shows, right? So it's kind of a two-sided approach there.
Well, that's also something that we're working hard on as a hosting company. At Captivate, we 2.0 brought with it trackable short links. You can get smart links and attribution from elsewhere, but that's all right. But wouldn't it be cool if you had the entire ecosystem covered? If me as a host didn't have to go elsewhere for it and I could connect other data to it. And I mean, it just so happens that we own both companies, Productivity and Captivate, so who's going to get the first integration with a one-click interaction to a short link that's been provided by your measured hosting provider? It's sort of
one guess there,
yeah. It's something that we believe in. This has been one of the most frustrating pieces for my podcasting journey. Is productivity was my first ever product idea in podcasting in 2013, mate, and it's only now in alpha because the industry wasn't quite ready for what was in the. And I don't mean that to sound like an arrogant guy, but
yeah,
I could see the tech wasn't quite there, and there wasn't enough numbers going through, and the mindset and abundance of openness in the industry wasn't there like it is now. And I say openness to new things is what I'm talking about there.
Right.
The second thing was I didn't know the deal. I'm not one of those startup founders that will dive into something with a bit of VC backing and assume that I've got all the answers. I had to walk the walk for years to understand whether that idea was any good or not. And it's been on my mind at 4 a.m. every night for 6, 7, 8 years.
Well, those are the best ideas. I mean, and you are like walking the walk too. I mean, you're so ingrained within podcasting. It's not just something on the side where you adopted a tech company, right? I mean, this was born out of a lot of your experiences, which I think is different too, right?
Yeah, exactly, man. And we only ever have ideas that will help people because a lot of the ideas are to solve problems that we're struggling with.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I agree, man.
All right. Well, one of the things I did want to talk about with Captivate, which I know is important on the brand side, it can fit in their mix, right? Is the private podcasting piece. And when we talked about this in our prep call, it was along the lines of perhaps retention, right? So connecting with customers, people that you already have trust with, but you're trying to enhance that relationship that exists. So talk a little bit about how private podcasting can fit into the equation.
Yeah, it's a good question that, and I think private podcasting is very much in its infancy, and it's used for sort of like creator support, which is great. Captivate is just about to launch very shortly, like paid for private podcasting, so paid for audio memberships and so on to allow people to choose their distribution platform and channel and manage it all from within their hosting platform and make their money how they want to make the money. That's sort of what private podcasting is seen as right now. You provide a great show, Tristan. I want to get exclusive stuff. Sweet. I'm in. Give you $5 a month, $10 a month. There's also the branded side of things, which is like the enterprise style stuff, where it's like, here's podcasting internally, and we use this internally at Captivate. If I've got a team message to put out, fortunately, I get my podcast hosting for free, so I can stick a private podcast episode out. And I can tell everyone that, look, hey, I just had a great chat with Tristan. Might be some follow-up to do here with Productivity. We think we can do some really, really great branded work. See you later. That goes out to the team and it's fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
Now, the newer side of it and the stuff that we talked about in the pre-chat was very much around how can we think, again, more laterally as a brand with this one. So what do I want when I buy into a brand? Well, I'm buying into an experience. I'm buying into something more than the product that you've sold me. I'm buying into the thing that you have made me believe in, the thing that will change how I do things, or that will give me a better life, or that will do X, Y, and Z. And it's your job really to make sure that that comes true. It's your job to make sure that, well, actually, Marco, you said that you were going to help me with my podcast growth. We Captivate, and so far all you've done is given me an RSS feed and some analytics. Like, give us a clue, mate. What's going on? So my job, if I'm a brand, is to say, well, look, you used to listening to podcasts. Perhaps you came through our branded channels, and we can track that and whatever. Here's a private podcast that only you get as a community member. You've bought Captivate. Here's a private podcast for you that will be delivered to your podcast app of choice, as long as it allows that private subscription. And it will give you information on, let's use Captivate as an example, accountability, mentorship, behind the scenes of what's coming. It's going to give you all the stuff that you would expect from a beer. You go, oh, wait a sec. You walk into a pub and Tristan and I, what are you doing at the bar? This is brilliant stuff. Wait a sec. You bought that watch as well. That's unbelievable. Cue 2 hours of conversation about that watch.
Yeah.
That's the thing that you and I are trying to achieve, and that is what subscription-based private podcasting for bottom of the funnel or retention content, post-funnel content will allow you to deliver. It will allow you to make people feel like they are a part of something very specific, that they are part of something that only they get to be a part of because they've taken that action and become a part of your belief system and of your product ecosystem. And it's not hard. Arguably, this is the easiest type of podcasting to do, because what other type of podcast can I just turn up on and just go, yo, what's up, everyone? It's Mark, CEO of Captivate. What other type of content will people be glad to hear that in?
Yeah.
They are, wait a sec, I'm getting this from Tristan, who's the boss.
Yeah.
That doesn't even need intro music. Doesn't even need editing.
Yeah, it's got that informal layer, right?
That's it.
You already have that rapport built. Yeah. It's more intimate almost.
Exactly. It's intimate, but it's also surprising. I we run a group, and I often in the community there, I'll chip in and I'll add some advice and stuff like that. And I don't breed this. I sort of don't want this, because I'm uncomfortable with the CEO tag. I think it's just, I'm just the founder and I like working in the business, but someone's kind of got to do it. And Kieran will be terrible at it because he's the tech guy. So I'll do it. But regardless of that, I have to put that title somewhere. So when I turn up in the Facebook group and I'm like, hey, what's up, guys? How's it going? Just watched Star Wars Rebels. That's pretty sweet, right? Enjoyed it. Anyone else watched it? Everyone's like, whoa, this is the guy that we see on the podcast and on the YouTube, and the guy that, like, we shouldn't have access to this because it says CEO on his title. So, like I said, for me, that's uncomfortable. I'm just the guy that runs the business, and I want that interaction. But to them, a lot of the time, it's like, what? We're not used to people giving us this access because we're used to working with the bank or the legal team, or we're used to working with like companies that don't give us this. So imagine that at scale.
Yeah.
Imagine one of your brands. Yo, what's up? This is me. I'm the CMO of, whatever, JP Morgan Chase. Here's the new product that we're rolling out. And I'm being interviewed by the person that also developed that product. It doesn't have to just be a very informal drop-in, but it can be surprising access to people that you would ordinarily not think you would get access to. And believe me, if you can nail that, there is no better form of retention. There is no better form of retention, because they're not buying then into the brand, they're buying into the people.
Got it. No, I love it. And we were talking about Squadcast even before we jumped on. And with a lot of the products and technology that I use, I always want to be a part of that, like inside track, right? Like what's coming down the line, what's new, what big changes are arriving, because it's a big part of what I do. And I think when you have customers like that and you can communicate this way in a private setting where it is special, it's surprising, that's really the benefit to a brand, it sounds like. And so with Captivate, I know private podcasting is something, like you said, it's in a brand new phase. You have productivity that you're rolling out. Like, last question for you, Mark. I know we're getting up on our time here, but what else, what's something else that you're working on that's on the horizon with all this stuff that you have going on?
Do you know what, Tristan? I'm very fortunate to have led a varied career that has taught me a lot about marketing, a lot about product design, a lot about running businesses. And these are all skills that podcasters need to learn if they're going to scale their podcast. So on the 28th of June, Captivate Growth Labs is going to launch, which will include our already out there in the wild, big flagship How to Launch a Podcast course. But I'm talking built directly into the hosting platform, just resources, tools, workshops, deep dive, high quality courses, all for free on how to run a Facebook campaign, how to close your first sponsorship deal. Here's a sponsorship pitch deck that you can use. Here are interviews and a deep dive workshop with all of these experts on SEO and so on and so forth. So that's launching on the 28th of June. That's the Captivate Growth Lab. And it's teaching you the skills as a podcaster that no one told you that you needed to succeed. All the things that, when as a podcaster, you've exceeded that friends circle of people listening, the family circle, and then the extended friends and family. That's when things get hard. And that's where Growth Labs exists to help you to become a podcast marketer. So that's launching 28th of June, man. And that's actually my little baby as well. I'm not a developer anymore. My development skills have lapsed.
Yeah.
So I can't really get my hands dirty on building Captivate day-to-day coding, but I can get my hands dirty on this stuff. So this is my little baby, dude. It's I'm looking forward to it.
All right, I love it. We'll link up to that stuff. June 28th. All right.
June 28th. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, Mark, this has been a pleasure, man. Like, where should people go to find out more about you, perhaps on Twitter and LinkedIn, and then about Captivate?
Yeah, sure. So the easiest place is just one simple place. Just hit me up on Twitter. I'd love to chat. We can talk about anything else there. So the easiest link to remember is just mark.live/Twitter. That'll take you straight through to my Twitter profile. We can interact and do what we need to do over there. But yeah, real pleasure to chat to you as always, mate. And, for you listening out there as well, I really appreciate you putting the time in.
All right, Mark. This has been a pleasure, man. Thanks a bunch. Thanks for joining me on Recorded Content.
Thank you very much.